We're not going to allow people to take the law into their own hands. It just doesn't work. So people are not allowed to open up a playground that's not yet available to the public. It's for a reason. Look, I was very sympathetic in the beginning to every parent, as a parent myself, why people wanted to be on those playgrounds. We tried to make it work. It wasn't working effectively. Right now, we're not going to make a change with the playgrounds until we get to phase 2. Now, phase 2, as everyone knows, could be as early as June 22nd. I've said I think it's going to take a little longer than that, just to make sure we're absolutely certain.
I mean, these guys are unbelievable. De Blasio here is explaining to you why they will not allow children in broad daylight, in sunshine, in 75-degree weather to go out into a playground in New York because of COVID. And thousands of people can gather in protests and stand there for hours and hours and hours every day. Remember, it's not children need to wear masks and then they can go to a playground. It's no playgrounds. Not allowed. How could anyone justify this? These guys are tyrannical morons. They realize that they don't actually have good reasons for what they do. Well, unless you look at the political reasons for much of the decision making around this. But they understand that the moment that they start to cede the, respect my authority or else mentality, people ask questions about other things. Ultimately, what the mayor's power really rests on? The willingness of the NYPD to enforce these laws. The mayor can say whatever he wants all day long, unless the cops are going to show up and actually make sure that you can't go into the playground and either write citations for people or effect arrests. People can just decide to do what they're going to do. So I would wonder at this point, if we weren't so in the midst of a mass brainwashing campaign because of the COVID panic, then perhaps we would be able to be at a circumstance where I could count on my fellow Americans here in New York. And this is true of other cities, too, that are dealing with this now. You're just not hearing about it. I mean, look at what's going on in Seattle. But where is the willingness to disobey stupid orders from the government? This is a dumb order. This is not rooted in science. This is not rooted in the data, as Fauci would say. It's not the data. It's about the mitigation. And, we're not sure. Yes, no, maybe so. That's where we are on all this. You have, and Governor Cuomo, who is the single worst example of how anybody could handle this whole pandemic. I mean, Governor Cuomo has still not really answered or explained how anyone could be so stupid. I mean, I understand what his reasoning was, which was you got to take seniors out of hospitals as quickly as possible because we're going to run out of hospital beds and we're going to run out of ventilators. That never happened, never even came close to happening. They're trying the same thing, though, now in other states. Oh, is your state going to run out of hospital beds? Oh, they're trying the panic that worked in New York. They're pushing it elsewhere, Remember, that panic allows the people that are pushing it to do whatever they want, to take away whatever rights of yours they want. And for those of you who say, oh, Buck, you're just talking about New York. No, they're trying this in Texas. They're trying this in Florida. They're trying this in other states now, too. Oh, the numbers are rising. Hospitalizations are going up. Yeah, everyone better hide under their beds. Cuomo thinks that he is somebody that everyone should look to for how to handle COVID as a political leader. I mean, he's delusional, but there's really, what other choice does he have other than to admit that the decisions that he made led to a lot of people losing their lives that did not have to, that we're not necessarily going to die. Here's what the governor said. Play clip 8.
Critics have suggested that you ignored early warnings about the severity of this disease and that if you had shut down a week earlier or two, that lives could have been saved. I believe that the former CDC director, Tom Frieden, says you could have cut New York's death toll by up to 80%. Obviously, now we have information we didn't have then. But do you regret now, with the information you have now, not shutting down New York earlier?
Well, we didn't have the information then.
Do you feel responsible for the New Yorkers who died in this pandemic?
I think the New Yorkers who died did not die because we failed them. We got them a hospital bed, which we didn't know that we could. We got them a nurse with PPE, with a mask, with a gown. We got them a doctor. We got them a ventilator. Everyone who died, we did everything we could.
Not true, because a very obvious thing to do would have been to make sure that COVID-positive seniors leaving hospitals were not just sent back in on executive order. This isn't like a thing that happened that no one is paying attention to. Cuomo mandated that they have to take people back into the nursing homes. So you sent people with COVID back into nursing homes, and then the COVID-19 spread through those nursing homes, the single most vulnerable population by far. It's not even close. Cuomo sent them back in, and we had thousands and thousands and thousands of seniors who died. But, you know, notice that doesn't even get brought up in this interview somehow. There was a Good Morning America. I mean, are these people journalists, or are they trying to tell me how to make the best, you know, feta and mint salad for summertime? I never really understand. You know, that show actually makes money, too. It's kind of funny. All these other shows, people don't realize these big news shows, even ABC and these, ABC News Tonight, they're revenue neutral. They don't make money. They're not big money makers because the left understands the need to have the narrative out there, and the liberal control of all these major media corporations guarantees that they'll fund things that don't make money that they still think are important. We don't do that in conservative media. Oh, no. On the right, we don't do that. But don't get me on that rant today. I told you we would follow up on the story of the Juan de Oñate statue protest down in New Mexico. We got somebody who's down there on the ground to join us and tell us about that in just a moment. Okay, team, I told you that if we got more information about that violent standoff in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that I would bring that to you. And we're fortunate to be joined by a friend of ours who knows everything about what's happening down there. We have Eddie Aragon with us now. He's the host of The Rock of Talk down in Albuquerque. Great to have you, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Buck.
So, all right, yesterday, as we talked about this on the show, I said we have people, they're being identified as militia members. It didn't seem that there was any more specificity than that. They're at a Juan de Oñate statue. What are some of the updates to the story that then led to the gunfire exchange? Somebody shot someone. He's stable in the hospital, from what I understand. You had Antifa squaring off against this militia. What happened here, Eddie?
So essentially, with all the statues coming down, and there's one in northern New Mexico in a place called Alcalde, they took down the Juan de Oñate statue. They see him as a symbol of oppression. Back in 1598, he was the governor from 1598 through 1606, really our first governor and the last conquistador is the way that he's referred to. So we've had this really sort of, I want to say, uprising political correctness here. They've latched on to that, have been pushing back and been going after the symbols. And of course, you've seen that nationally in terms of what's been happening everywhere from going after, Confederate statues or going after Christopher Columbus statue. This is right in line with that. And Antifa has sort of picked up that gauntlet. There's about 30 to 35 people on the ground here who are paid. And they went down there, and they were all in all, including the Antifa that were there, there's probably about 200. No social distancing here, Buck. I mean, these guys are down. They're going to go down and destroy public property that is paid for by the taxpayers at the Albuquerque Museum, no less. 15 people, including 8, which is known as the New Mexico Civil Guard. They were there trying to keep some sort of order. These are properly trained people. I had one of them there yesterday on my show, and we talked for an entire hour about what they were doing. They have rules of engagement, and this is a constitutional militia that were there.
Can I ask, because this is important, Eddie, I don't mean to interrupt, but you're giving us all these details that, yesterday I said, guys, the reporting is still a little bit, there's some holes, things we got to fill here. You're telling me that militia that was there at the Juan de Oñate statue had, before the violent exchange on video, they were in violation of no laws. Is that correct? Meaning,
absolutely. We have zero and carry here in the state. They are a constitutional militia. They're at a number of events. They have great rapport with a number of groups here, specifically, obviously, and conservative groups here in the state of New Mexico. No record of any sort of public I don't know, disturbances.
What is their
whatever
mission?
you want to call it.
What's their mission?
I didn't catch that.
What is their mission?
Their mission, from what I understand, I talked to a gentleman by the name of Bryce Smith, and their mission is just to keep the peace. It's a constitutional militia to protect the laws, to protect the, civilness, if you will, and to just keep order, because our Albuquerque Police Department is not doing that. And there's a lot of details here, so I'm going to go fast. So the Albuquerque Police Department was told to stand down by the command. The command gets it from the chief, Chief Geyer. Geyer responds to the Albuquerque mayor, very progressive, has had 2 New York Times articles written about him, as has our governor, who I refer to as the governess. She is one of 6 finalists, according to the Associated Press, for the, you can believe it, vice presidency with Biden. So we've got this big progressive agenda. Tim Keller, our mayor, told Chief Geyer to go ahead and tell these people to stand down and not engage what was happening there. Quoted this as a peaceful protest. Now, this is all secondhand information that's all coming from the police officers that I am in contact with, not the command staff, not the brass, but the actual police officers who are communicating with me as a radio host here in Albuquerque. And here's where it gets real interesting. They did nothing. And now they're getting looked into for not doing nothing. I talked to the the president of the Albuquerque Police Officer Association, just got off the phone with him. His name is Sean Willoughby. Okay, so have all these pieces that are right there. That militia was the only group that was there to sort of keep the peace, while you had about 150 to 200 people, no official count, so I don't know, obviously not doing the social distancing or thing like that, literally wobbling and taking a pickaxe, throwing a chain around Juan de Oñate, destroying public property. And as I said, there's 8 militia members and maybe about 5 or 6 people at most of the contra or the opposite end of all this. Things started to escalate, more chants, anti-fascism, no Trump, no KKK, no racism. These are all the things that they're saying. And there's about a good hour of audio. So there's a gentleman by the name of Steve Baca, and he ran for Albuquerque City Council. He's a conservative. He's out there. He's upset about what's taking place. He attempts to sort of blockade and try to prevent, if you will, Juan de Oñate from being pulled down. And here's where it really gets interesting, because the Antifa members start laying hands, getting violent, and that's considered an assault, as you know, from law enforcement. They're not only just laying hands on Stephen Baca, but they're also laying hands on the militia as they're getting pelted. The constitutional militia is getting pelted, pushed, and not one of these guys ever has the nose of their gun aimed at any one of these people, and they're getting pushed off this small hill where Juan de Oñate's statue is. So Stephen gets pushed back. They try to create a border, a chain border around, as many of these Antifa members and other activists, remember, not everybody there is Antifa members. I'll more on that a little bit later. Holding back, trying to push them back. Who are they trying to push back? Stephen Baca and several other people who are there, and the militia is getting pushed off. So this spills out outside the border, onto the streets, and there's about 10 to 12 feet. I've already inspected the place. I know the distances. I mean, it's very familiar to me. Pushed out onto the street, Stephen Baca. Well, an altercation takes place because Stephen lays hands, unfortunately, and he is open carrying from what I can tell. And he does have a can, looks like a pepper spray on his left hand. And these are lots of little details that are starting to emerge from all of this. And he basically takes that girl that was trying to blockade, because she's pushing him back violently, by the way, pushing back and pushing back and pushing. He finally gets frustrated, picks her up and slams her down. That ignites the altercation. 3 Antifa members. I've got all the names and all the pieces. Scott Williams involved in this. There's 2 other pieces. A guy by the name of Paul Cortez is also involved in all this. These are people who are activists. They push him out onto the street. Well, Stephen is starting to put his hands up. And we have a first aggressor rule here in the state of New Mexico. Stephen would have been considered a first aggressor in all of this. But he took a step back and he started going away because he's by himself. He's completely and totally outnumbered, goes probably about 100, maybe about 75 to 80 yards down the street, and 3 Antifa members, all black. How do I know they're Antifa members? all black, red bandanas, all backpacked, all water bottled in the back. These guys are basically equipped and ready to go. And these have also been verified by Bryce Smith. Bryce Smith was the sort of head of the constitutional militia that was there,
right,
who I had on. He's the one that gave me all this information. He starts to step back and move away from them and continues to back. Well, Antifa gets amped up. The emotions start to take over. They start chasing after him, and they swing not once but twice, make contact at least once with Steve Baca. And as he's going down, he's now running away, turning the other way. And there's the video. I shared that hopefully with your producers are able to see that. I not only took it from ABQ Raw, but I also slow-moed it so everybody can see it. Well, at this point, it turns into self-defense. And Steve, being chased by 3 Antifa members and the woman that's there, turns around after being thrown to the ground, ripped his shirt. They attack him, try to wrestle him to the ground. At that point, he's being attacked by two Antifa members and a woman.
And he pulls his gun and he shoots. Okay, right. And so then tell us what. Right. When we talked about the video yesterday. So has he been arrested? Where does it stand legally?
Which one, Stephen or?
Yeah, the guy who shot the guy. Has he been arrested?
Very quickly, Stephen gets tossed on the ground, reaches for his gun, perfectly executes the defense of himself, shoots the guy at least 2 times, maybe 3 times. We don't know. Still getting some information. They haven't released information on the man who was shot. Scott Williams shot. Scott turns around, falls to the floor. Steve takes a knee. He's not running. He's staying right there. He knows, as someone who's been properly trained in concealed carry, as someone who knows what needs to be done at the very end, he takes a knee, waits for the police to come and get him, basically. They attend to Scott Williams, and all that stuff is right there. After review, they take Stephen in, and Stephen, because of the circumstantial information and other probably police interviews that have been going on, he gets charged with aggravated battery. So he's the only person to this point has been charged with anything, and that was self-defense. Outnumbered. If this was on the flip side, I don't want to give you necessarily.
Right, no, we understand the details and we get it. We've seen the video. Okay, well, look, let us know how this shakes out, if he ends up going to trial on this one or what happens. But I'm glad that we got somebody who has real perspective on what's going on down there in Mexico. We got to get to a station break, but if you want to tell one more thing, go ahead.
Okay, very quick.
Yeah.
This was shifted from APD to New Mexico State Police. There's no longer control of the narrative, and the state police is run by the progressive governor who's running for vice president, Michelle Lujan Grisham, and who I'm also trying to impeach. So there you go.
All righty. Thanks so much. Eddie Aragon, everybody down in Albuquerque, the Rock of Talk. Eddie, thank you so much for joining us, man. We appreciate your perspective from what's actually happening down there.
And thank you for your show.
It's time for Roll Call.
Indeed it is. Time for the roll call. Woo! Producer Mark, I'm hearing Dr. Fauci is saying that there should not be MLB baseball past September. Are you finally ready to laugh when I do the Fauci impersonation, if nothing else, to add to the ridicule of the ridiculousness?
Absolutely. I think it's ridiculous, especially if they're all going to be in a bubble. How can you stop baseball? Regardless, might not be any baseball because the billionaires and the millionaires are still fighting like whiny little babies. So it doesn't really matter.
So you're saying it's not even just Fauci saying, no, because the mitigation in the stadium is not, there's air and airflow and people, when they have aerosolized virus, all that. You're saying that actually it's a bunch of rich crybabies in baseball and the owners who are the problem.
Yes. They still have not agreed to a deal, and it is June 17th. How are you fitting, they want to play 80 games, 70, 80 games? How are you fitting that right now in a World Series?
Are the Yankees still kind of like the New England Patriots of baseball, or has that, are they consistently a powerhouse, or has that gone away? I have no idea.
This year they're probably the best team in baseball. They have a very good team. They haven't won a World Series since 2009, which is a lot for Yankee fans, but for me, a Mets fan, I would take one in a decade. That's fine.
Do you just like to suffer, Mets fan, Mark?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
do.
what this is all about?
Yeah, my whole life has been pain and suffering because of the New York Mets and the New York Rangers.
That's tough stuff. I gotta agree.
I have the Giants.
I remember learning from a friend of mine who was a very good hockey player all about Marc Messier. See, I remember him.
Yeah, the glory year, 1994.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. All right. We got some roll call coming your way. As I said, please do go to bucksexton.com. I have a call to wartime conservatism up there. Friends, I wrote this. I put it on the site. I told you we would do original content. I'm delivering on that. I'm going to keep doing this. But please share this. The best way for the word to get out. I'm not. Look, I don't think that other conservative websites, the big ones out there, will touch this kind of stuff right now. I mean, they're all. Everyone's so scared. All the big corporate ones. Some of the independents, fine, but all the big corporate websites, they're all scared. They're scared for real pushback. They don't want the risk. They don't want sponsors to pull. But we need this message to get out there. I need you to help me with it. bucksexton.com. Go to it. Please share it on your social media. We posted on Facebook. We posted it on Twitter. You can just reshare on Facebook or retweet it on Twitter. We've got to get the word out. And I think, team, I'm counting on you. I'm counting on you. I need people to read this and say, he's right. We are losing. Time to turn this around and get fired up. You want Trump to win? Here's a way to help that happen. All right. Now, that was I could be the coach in Mighty Ducks, producer Mark. That's how good that was.
I don't know if you're a Gordon Bombay. No offense. He's legendary.
Wow. Legendary. Chad, first up here. If you want to send us anything on Facebook, facebook.com/BuckSexton. Producer Mark is also pulling all kinds of great audio from our voicemail box. No dirty talking, producer Mark, by the way. He's a married man, all right? Just going to put that out there. Some of Team Buck get a little saucy sometimes. Our producer Mark doesn't want to have to earmuff himself because you're saying saucy things to him.
I'm immune to this stuff by now.
Fair enough. Chad writes into the roll call first off. He says, Buck, with Cuomo's new threat of closures as punishment, it's time to escape from New York while you can. Apparently, protesters and rioters are the only class of citizens that may have freedom to freely move about the city. I can assist with an extraction ops plan when you are ready for freedom. Chad, don't think it hasn't crossed my mind, man. New York is in bad shape right now. New York is in a tough situation, that is for sure. There's no question about it. So we shall see. I mean, I don't know. Canada's not that far away, but Canada's run by a bunch of lib commie types, so we can't go to Canada. Texas, everyone's talking Texas, they're trying to shut you down. The lockdown libs are coming for you. You in Florida. They heard Team Buck. They heard the Freedom Hut might be moving. They obviously listen to the show. They got to monitor us, and not just Media Matters scum, but actually, the other leftists. And they know that producer Mark and Buck moved down to Florida or Texas. We're going to help keep those states red forever, baby. So now they're trying to lock them down so they prevent us. That's my theory, producer Mark, and I'm sticking to it.
So you just want another reason to blame the libs for something?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but so I don't know where does one go? Where does one go that the craziness has not already extended? Evan writes, when I initially saw the SCOTUS decision to not allow trans discrimination, I didn't think much of it. I actually thought that's what the law already was. After listening to your take on it, I realized what a blow to liberty it really is. May God help us. Well, Evan, I appreciate you giving me the credit here for bringing you around to my point of view on it, which I think is the legally accurate one, which is that now the lawsuits that will come from this and the ways that this will be, remember, now the legal machinery gets up, and then now they're going to be thinking, what's the best way tactically to bring lawsuits, to get institutions to bend the knee? What's the best way to attack, the nuclear family, all these Marxist ideas that are out there that BLM is representing. And my friends, remember, libs cry and freak out because they say the Supreme Court is so conservative. What was the last big conservative victory the Supreme Court handed down? D.C. v. Heller? They didn't take any additional Second Amendment cases this time around. Why? Oh, okay. So you can kind of have a gun in your home if you jump through endless hoops in liberal jurisdictions and pay a fee and go through all these hurdles, then you can kind of have a gun in your home. Can you take it out of your home? Can you open carry? Can you conceal carry? Can you transport it to a second location? None of that is covered in D.C. Heller. Are assault weapons in common usage or not? Can they be banned? All that's wide open. Supreme Court doesn't want to take any cases to deal with anything on the Second Amendment right now. This is our so-called conservative-leaning Supreme Court. It's a joke. A joke. But, I mean, I'm trying to just deal with the reality we're in, my friends. Obamacare, 2 times saved by the Supreme Court. 2 times. What's the big victory for conservatism the Supreme Court has had? Oh, that's right. You can't think of one because it hasn't happened. Bush v. Gore. You got to go back 20 years. And that was pretty straightforward. It's, hey, libs, stop cheating the election you lost. OK, it wasn't really a big legal question. It's you can't keep trying to game the system to get the outcome you want. That's not how elections work. Bush is president. Go cry, libs. That's all that was. Pretty obvious, pretty straightforward. OK, Citizens United. Producer Nick says Citizens United. The government was saying they could ban publishing books before an election. I mean, yes, that was a good thing. But, wow, it's hard to think of that as a sweeping victory for liberty. It just means that we're not living in a left-wing ideological echo chamber entirely at the behest of the government. And, the libs hate Citizens United, too. They cry about that one all the time. Kristen, hey, Buck, thanks for covering the Brooks incident so fairly. Just one point about it. Brooks was found sleeping in his car in the Wendy's drive-thru, which prompted them to call the police. It's not so much that his keys were in the ignition. He had driven into the drive-thru, proving he had driven while under the influence. Too many are just saying he was sleeping in his car when that wasn't the case. Kristen, good catch, good detail. Thank you for that. When they said, though, in the drive-thru, I wasn't clear to me when I read it if they meant that he was blocking the drive-thru lane with his car or not. It seemed that was what was going on. Producer Mark, do you know?
I took it as that he pulled up to the drive-thru to get some food and just didn't move his car.
Okay, so that is then, yeah, so that's understandable why people call the police. You're obstructing a business from operating, and you clearly are driving, and you're clearly drunk. So he's a drunk driver. So we should the guy's a drunk driver. I mean, he was a drunk driver. Now, that doesn't mean you should be killed, but if we're going to talk about the incident accurately, he was a drunk driver. All right. And then it turns into a use of force issue and how that all went down. I think that... as I've said, it seems harsh and it is tragic, but I do not think the cops were criminally in the wrong. I do not think that that's the case. We'll see what ends up happening. Todd, hello, Buck. I just listened to Rush read your tweets. Thank you for taking a stand for conservatism. I'm glad your message made its way to Rush and that it moved him enough to share it with his audience. We conservatives need to band together now more than ever. This is the time to draw the line in the sand and say enough is enough. Shields high. Todd, thank you very much. It was quite a thing when El Rushbo read my entire tweet thread on his show. That was pretty cool. Since it was brought up by a listener, here it is. Here is Rush on his show yesterday.
Many of you might remember the former guest host on this program, Buck Sexton of the CIA.
I love that he always says I'm of the CIA. It's kind of like, it's been the CIA a long time ago. Not only do I think of myself as Buck Sexton of the Buck Sexton Show, but Rush was very generous reading all my tweets on his show, and here's how some of it went.
If one of the conservative billionaires out there has any stomach for saving their country from this mob, they should buy and flip a major media platform or fund a new one and make it an unsinkable aircraft carrier of true free speech. And I get this a lot. I've had this question of why doesn't some wealthy conservative come along and buy CBS or ABC or anything else? I don't know. I have no idea. I happen to know that a bunch of people who have bought networks are not flaming leftists, and they never do anything to change the news networks that are part of the corporations that they have purchased. Buck Sexton continues, we are completely outgunned in the platform wars, and it's only getting worse.
Yep. So Rush read, it was almost a dozen or so tweets that I had that went viral on this issue about the platform wars and how we are way behind, and conservatives need to stop thinking. Our mentality has been, if we play nice, if we play fair with the other side, we will finally win them over to at least being fair. No, that will not happen. That is not that is not where this is going. So I just wish everybody would understand that right now and recognize that they are not looking to just give us only a little piece of the pie in the media. They are looking to cancel us, to rub us out, to push us aside, to destroy our platforms, all of it. Erase us. That's what they're looking to, erase our point of view from the public sphere. That's the game they're playing. And we're playing but what if we only have Mitt Romney-style conservatives? What if they are the one? No, bad. Very bad indeed. Maureen. Hello, Buck and producer Mark. I loved your rallying cry to the urgency of our potential demise. We are in trouble, and we do need to be on the offensive and organized. But to do what? How do we stop the Supreme Court from their lunacy? How do we stop rogue governors from overreach? The right never gets any airtime or publicity. The DNC media only ever shows an all hate all the time leftist screed only. So what is the right to do? 98% of us don't know how to fight back against the DNC propaganda media machinery. We love you and producer Mark, so please tell us how to fight back against all of this. Well, Maureen, it depends on what you do and what your risk tolerance is and where you are. But the first step is understand what's happening and understand what your principles are and try to defend them and spread them at every opportunity, whatever that means for you, whether that's just in one-on-one conversations that come up in your day-to-day life, or if that's in a willingness to share your thoughts on social media. It's to support the people that are out there in public, whether it's politicians or people in the media or writers, authors, analysts, commentators who are doing that work. And I always admit this, that obviously is in my own self-interest to say, but it's true. This is, there's a reason. I've canceled subscriptions from left-wing newspapers that I used to pay for and read because I wanted to know what the bad guys were thinking. But now I don't want to give them any more money. So I'm done with that. Right. I try to take actions in my own life. I buy books from people even that I could get for free because of my show. This is a big platform for the sale of books. I'll buy books specifically because I want to support that author, that historian, that commentator. They're all of these little actions. If everyone just has in their mentality that we all are making, we're all making decisions that affect this overall battle every day, then taken all at once, or taken all together, I should say, can make a real difference, and can put us on a trajectory to have them, or can put us back on the right trajectory and can give us back the momentum. April, Buck and producer Mark, banana bread with chocolate chips is yummy, but if you haven't tried banana bread with butterscotch chips, you are missing out. I have to disagree about Mozart. Whoa, April. He was great, but classical music is just so stiff. Beethoven was the father of the Romantic era, and without him, we would not have music like it is today. I highly recommend the movie Immortal Beloved if you haven't seen it. Gary Oldman is masterful at the part, and it has an outstanding and gut-wrenching soundtrack. The story centers around wistful, passionate love letters that Beethoven wrote to a mystery woman. True story, and the movie is beautiful. Please check it out. Maybe I will check that out, actually. Okay, so you mean classical as in the era. Usually people think of classical music as the broad sweeping term for all music that includes Baroque and classical and Romantic. You mean the specific era that Mozart was in. I don't know. I mean, April, look, I gave Beethoven a shout. Beethoven, if you like Bill and Ted. I gave Beethoven a shout out on the show, too. I think they're the two greatest of all time. They are the GOAT and the other GOAT. I don't know what you'd say, but they're the two greatest of all time. So, but Mozart, look, Mozart's a genius, Mozart is like the MacGyver of classical music. Does anyone even remember MacGyver? Guy had a mullet and would take a pen an old apple and 3 rusty nails and make like a transistor radio out of it. Never use guns either, but somehow always the bad guys just were in the right spot in the right time for him to throw kind of one good punch at them. You never even watched that show, did you, Producer Mark? You have no idea what I'm talking about.
I only know what you're talking about because of the SNL sketch and I think movie MacGruber where they mocked it.
Yep. That's right. Well, everybody, that's going to be the show for today. BuckSexton.com about wartime conservatism. Please go read it, share it, tell people about it. Back tomorrow.